All right, thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar titled Using Kanban to Update Your Process. My name is Lauren Izoni and I help coordinate the trainings here at CCP. Just a little bit about us. We are a 37-year-old IT consulting company. We have three main areas of business: staffing, financial services, and Agile services. Under our Agile services umbrella, we offer both custom development and training and coaching. With training, we offer both private and public courses and, of course, webinars. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them in the question box on your right, and we will answer as many as possible at the conclusion of the webinar. Just an additional note for today, I am currently broadcasting from Houston, so we are obviously having some weather issues. I hopefully will not have any hiccups during the webinar, but we do have an associate on hand in case we have any power loss. So if there's any hiccup in the webinar, please hang on and we will be up and running as soon as possible, but hopefully we will be all set. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to our instructor today, Daniel.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm an AKT accredited Kanban trainer from Lean Kanban University. And let's go ahead and do this webinar. In our day-to-day life, we're often confronted with either pushing or pulling, and our brain pushes us to go into push mode. What does that mean? Is that we're driven by events or dates or plans. And most of the time, our brain goes on automatic pilot and adopts the pushing approach. The only thing obvious that I think we cannot push is a string. But other than that, our brain has choices to make, and sometimes it's just not making the right choice. Flow, on the other hand, is an example of a pulling approach, and it's not based on time boxing, which is a push approach. And it's the only agile approach that doesn't believe and doesn't use short iterations and time boxing. Time boxing and short iteration create a scarcity of time, artificial, mind you, because we create it, and it makes us lose up to 14% of your IQ. That's individual. So imagine the effect that it can have on a team. It can be pretty drastic. What is flow exactly? Flow is located between boredom and anxiety. When you're bored, you're not into flow, obviously. And when you're in a state of anxiety, you're obviously in distress and cannot experience flow. So flow is the juggling act of getting people in a state which is in between boredom and anxiety. And then your company, it means that your enterprise is able to offer you challenges that you're not quite ready to take, but can undertake anyway with the help of your peers, and the skills that you have, and of course the choices that you want to make. If you don't want to improve your skills as an architect, then you can improve your skills in another domain. So it's an equilibrium between challenges and skill at the organizational level. For the business, of course, the more of their individuals or employees are in a state of flow, the better the performance of the company will be. Because contrary to what you might think, flow creates value and not much else. So if you get into a state of flow, you will get better results. Now, we're gonna do a little exercise on flow, and Lauren is gonna poll you to vote. I have people in a room A. I have people in room B. In room A, there's nothing obstructing the door. And in room B, there is a column obstructing the door. My question to you is pretty easy. It's which room do you think people will be able to get out of the faster if, let's say, there were a fire alarm or an emergency that everybody had to leave the room? Is it door A? Is it room A or room B, which is obstructed? So Lauren, if you can poll the people, and we're going to give you about 10, 15 seconds. Everybody wins. Okay, everybody wins. There's no problem. So again, room A, the door is unobstructed. How fast do you think they'll get out of there? Faster than B or slower than B? And again, room B is obstructed with a column right before the entrance, the exit time. So do we have results?
We do. Looks like they're still coming in.
Okay.
Give everyone a few more seconds here.
It's A or B. The answer is A or B.
Okay, let's see. Okay, it looks like we have 41% answered A and 59% answered B.
Okay, so that's pretty good, actually. Okay, we're going to have a good discussion. So I'll move on to explaining exactly what happens, because you're both right. Those that said A are right, and those who said B are also right. But there is a configuration issue. If we look at situation 1, we can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people can exit the room per unit of time. And for B, only 3. So in this configuration 1, people that are in room A are lucky, they can escape faster. Let's reconfigure the column a bit for situation 2. And we see that per unit of time, only 1 person can escape of room A, and 2 can escape of room B. Okay, so can you believe that we're obstructing the door, and actually more people will be able to get out? And for scenario 3, per unit of time again, no one made it out in room A, and 2 people made it out in room B. So my question to you is, how come we don't have those configurations in our restaurants and our public places where there is a danger of a fire alarm coming on? And clearly putting a column in front of the doors, the exits, would be of great help. It could even save lives. Sometimes we think with our intuition and not with our brain, not with our rational side. How can we apply this to work at the office? Meaning, how can I obstruct flow so that we can get more work done? And this is something that at Lean Kanban University has been around for a little while. When we have all of these ideas that come from the marketing department, the engineering department, or the legal department, we don't push them right away to the executing team, the team that actually does the work. We take them, we put some insurance money, we analyze them, we synthesize them, we architecture them, and as the time goes by, we end up throwing stuff away because it doesn't make sense. When we do this, and we're turning ambiguous demand into that arrives irregularly into a steady, predictable, and balancing flow of work for those who do the work, we are basically increasing the throughput of our organization. If we put money up here in this process that you see with my mouse, we're basically paying insurance money, which is smart money. If you take things that have not been properly discussed and analyzed, and they go into the production cycle, and suddenly you change your mind and you want to get it out of there, well, you just spend money on waste, which is not, in today's world, the smartest thing to do. Another way to visualize it is through a Kanban board. The ideas, the pool of ideas are coming on the left, and like 1,000 ideas. Customers are very creative. So to trim it down to, let's say, between 48 and 24 business cases, then you throw out maybe 12 of these ideas. You go for 24 to 12 for requirements analysis. And again, you find out that you would be better off rejecting some of those. So this money here is the cost of acquiring option. It has value. And then when you're ready for engineering, you're only left with 4 or 12 chewable bits for the development team. And downstream Kanban, what it does when people are not overwhelmed is that the team improves its capability to meet demand better. And on the other side, for upstream Kanban, well, the client is able to shape demand to better use the capability that has been developed. So that's the way that you can basically obstruct the flow of work to make the worker who actually do the job more efficient. And then work can start on a more efficient basis. So today we'll formally discuss pull systems and cultures and everywhere in day-to-day life, because sometimes you don't know that you're being pulled or pushed. And it's nice, it's fun actually in day-to-day life to be conscious of if you're being pulled or pushed. We'll talk about Agile, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the no Kanban hashtags, and pivoting and capability maturity model integration. So in Philadelphia and in any big city, there's a sign that always says don't block the box. It means that if you're caught on a red line in the intersection, you're liable to have a ticket. Now, it holds for a big truck, for a minivan, for a motorbike, and for a small car and big cars. The rule is very simple. There's a pull signal at the other end of the street that basically says, hey, you have enough space to come or not? If not, and the light turns red on you, you'll have a ticket. Of course, people, when they're imposed constraint, they like to cheat. But when there's a policeman doing the actual work, doing the actual pulling, everybody is pretty obedient. Another example of pulling. I remember my little daughter when she was not yet able to talk, but I was reading her favorite book of little stories with pictures of animal. She would tell me in which direction to go and what animal to mimic, and going back in the book and going forward. And she couldn't even talk, but she was pulling. Pulling is an important part of learning. Now, another example of cultures and sports that use pulling and pushing. But Muay Thai is purely pushing. There's only one defense in Muay Thai, is that you go after your opponent. And Aikido, which is almost always pulling for 99% of the time. And when you look at these two pictures, wow, which one looks easier? Which one is more like flow? And gamers. Gamers are the ultimate flow and pull culture people. Why? Because they play when they want to, where they want, and for as long as they want, and with the intensity of the moment. Do they want to play light for 5-10 minutes or heavy for 30 seconds while waiting for the bus? The choice is entirely theirs. E-learning. Learning from home when I feel like it, when the kids aren't there, when I have peace and quiet, when I'm at my optimal peak of the day, it's pretty cool and it's better. Instead of being pushed and going to school and not miss my class at 10 o'clock because then I'll have a report card and so on and so forth. So when there's a pull signal, when there's a pull system, there's usually a capacity constraint. And Kanban system leverage this in order that there's not too much work to be done. If we look at this Kanban system, we have WIP limits of 6, 3, 3, and 6. No more than 6 items can go on in testing, 3 in development, 3 in analysis, and 6 pending. So we see that in test we're full. So nothing in development can come into test, even though it's in a done state. And whatever is in development, there's nothing being done but the WIP limit is filled with 3 items that cannot go into test. And the same with analysis. So in this game, you see, in this case of a Kanban system, you see that there's a bit of starvation going on, and the team has to react and find a solution to that. But nothing will go into the system because the system has reached its capacity. And this setup, people will not be overburdened, they will not be multitasking, because what's the easiest thing for development and analysis people to do when their work is done and they cannot pull it downstream? Well, we're going to start something else. Whenever you're stuck with no work, what is it that you're going to do naturally? Hey, we'll start something new. And it's not the right approach. It will just overburden you. Here, well, we have another Kanban board. And actually, we can pull. We always pull from the right so that work from the left can go through the system. So we see that testing, we have a WIP limit of 3, and there's 4 tickets because one is an expedited ticket, so it has the right to be there. But we see that in test ready, we've got nothing. And the development, we have ticket E that's done. So we can pull. There's capacity here. And we pull. That frees up the space and development where we can pull again. Pulling is a signal. It's a signal that says, I have capacity. And this way, people are not overburdened, and work gets done 300 to 800 times faster because you're allowing people to concentrate on the work and not multitask. And here again, then we can take stuff from ideas and put it in the dev ready column. So that's a bit the way that Kanban boards work. Now we're going to talk about agile practices. We've all read the Agile Manifesto. All Agile approaches agree that it should be used, and Kanban also starts from there. When you read the Agile Manifesto, it looks like you're really looking at the software development methodology. But if you read the practices and the values and the principles of Kanban, it's agnostic to the domain in which you are. It can be for a marketing firm, for an engineering firm, for a legal department, anything. It's not bound to a specific domain. So we see that we have 4 values. We have 12 principles that are manifested in many practices. There's no limit to the number of practices that ultimately can be found in an agile approach. Anything goes. You can find the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they can all fit in there. For example, where does the Agile Manifesto say that you have to create new roles, new responsibilities, and new organizational structure in order to be agile? It doesn't make any sense. You're putting new layers of cost in order to be more agile. If you take the top 5 favorite, most popular agile approaches, they have 64 new roles for you. Talk about creating anxiety for your workers. Learning anxiety. Will I be able to learn? And survival anxiety. Will they keep me? That's not good. And people resist change. And coming in with new roles, new responsibilities, and so on, will be resisted aggressively and passively. When we look on the other hand, on the practices of Kanban, there's only 6. And they're repeatable no matter what the context is, and they will give you repeatable results. Economies and of efficiencies, the productivities of 300, 800, 1,000% are common, and your delivery rate will be shortened by factors of 90%, 50%, consistently, and it has been proven in the literature provided by the market and by the clients that it happens. When you look at the core practices, well, they're a bit ambiguous, they don't tell you what to do, but this ambiguity allows you to create mutation and to improve. And the first three, when someone tells you, hey, I'd like to Kanbanize something, the first three practices are the only ones that are required. Visualize the work, put the work and limit the work and process, and manage flow by respecting the WIP limit and by pulling work out of the system. Basically, stop starting and start finishing. We're all ended up, your companies all ended up on different islands of agility: Scrum, Safe, Lean Startup, Lean UX, Kanban, Holacracy, Sociocracy. How did you get there? Were you thinking, or were you using your intuitive brain, which is the sum of all your past experience? Well, in Kanban, we believe in enabling the whole brain, and somebody has to drive this elephant of intuition that we all have in our heads. And the rational brain basically is supported by science, and science is very easy to ascertain whether you have a scientific approach or not. The results must be repeatable. And only Kanban can give you that benefit. Now, moving on to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, most sophisticated market in the world, and they've got metrics. They got the tightness, the bid and ask spread, the immediacy, the breadth, the depth, and the resiliency. I won't go through all of them, but they are visual, they're easy to understand, and they reflect the state of this very, very complex system. And neophytes and erudites alike are able to understand instantly. Isn't it nice to have a system like that at work, that people can walk in and say, hey, I understand, within 5 minutes of explanation? If someone knows how Kanban works, he can go anywhere, because this Kanban system is symmetric, and the knowledge is symmetric, applies everywhere. When you go from agile project to agile project to agile project, well, you got to adapt to whatever recipe they have, and it can take time. And that's why they don't want you to leave. But in a Kanban system, we believe that the system makes a strength, and we believe that respecting the group, allowing them to produce efficiently and have a life after work, is the best approach. So the equivalent of these CME metrics on a Kanban economic system, because believe it or not, a Kanban system is an economic system where daily decisions are made to make sure that capability meet demand of the skills and the challenges that are facing. So the tightness is the variance between the customer expectation and the probability of meeting current lead time. Immediacy is the flow efficiency. Breadth is the variety of type of work handled. The depth is the variety of risk under management, and the resiliency is the ability to come back to your normal state of operations. So that's an example of tightness. Easy metric, visualize, everybody can understand. On time, on my delivery, I was 62% on time, 22% I was after due date, and 15% I was before. Easy to understand. Immediacy is the flow efficiency. So when you see the amount of days that I have in any done column on a ticket, I count them. When they're a state of ready also, they're not being worked on, so I count them. And when they're being blocked, so I can actually see what percentage of the time I'm actually working on tickets. Another metric that is used is also the flow efficiency, where we pay very close attention to all the waiting states on a Kanban board, like dev ready, test ready, done for development, testing, and release ready are all waiting states. And we must be sure that the tickets spend as much time as possible in working states. It's all done visually, and it can all be optimized by the team facing the board and making economic decisions every day. Red is the variety of type of work that you handle, where you have classes of service, you have fixed state tickets, intangible, standard, expedite, tickets from marketing, tickets for bugs. There's no limit to the amount of the breadth of classes of service that you can have. The variety of risk also that are under management and your taxonomy of risk. For example, when you have a new project, a new ticket, or a new portfolio, or a new program, instead of spending 95% of your meeting discussing, you can put a visualization of the complexity of your portfolio and say that my market risk, my technical risk, my delay impact, and my cost of delay are represented on this caveat graph, and I can choose in a more in an easier way what it is that I want to do next. So visualization instead will lead you to the right discussion as to what you should do next and schedule next. Now, the resiliency is the ability to recover in your Kanban system. So we see a situation which is pretty normal. All the WIP limits are respected, and we have an expedited ticket up here, which is C. And all of a sudden, it becomes very complicated, and we've got to multiply the number of tickets with it. It's really gotten more complicated than we thought. So what do we do? Well, of course, the WIP limits are broken, so nothing else will enter in the system. But we've got these two persons here working on intangibles, and these guys working on a fixed date tickets, but which is early in the development stage. So what can we do? Well, we can storm. We can take these people who are on intangible, it gives us labor liquidity, and we put them up there to help with the problem that we have in the expedited lane. And slowly but surely, it will be managed, and then flow will be re-enabled again. So labor liquidity and resiliency of the system is handled by having a workforce that is mobile. Kanban metrics. What's nice about the Kanban metrics is that they're easy to observe and they're hard to fake. They're visual, simple, self-generating, relevant, and are either a leading indicator, an improvement driver, or a general health indicator of your economic system, which is a Kanban system. So tomorrow at work, you can ask yourself, which of my indicators are leading indicators that are going to predict my future performance in the next week, month, or quarter? Which ones are improvement drivers? And which ones are general health indicators? And you'll be surprised as to how many that you could find. Now, we're in the no Kanban hashtags discussion. Kanban is known for a lot of things that it doesn't believe in, and especially at the level of revolutionary change. All agile methods come with new roles, new structures, new deliverables. It's a revolution. And you can't become agile unless you apply those recipes that, you know, a bunch of external experts will provide you with and will assist you for a year or two. And Kanban says, no, You've been in business for like 10 years, 15 years. We respect what you've done. And we're going to start with what you're doing now. Respecting your roles, your responsibility, and your actual structure. And we're going to see how we can improve with methods, scientific methods, that are proven to work. Now, who's going to resist change when it comes to this approach? No one. Because we start from where you are. Planning. Planning in Kanban, most of you do your planning in a room away from the actual capacity and away from the workload that's being undertaken by the team. Well, Kanban does the planning in front of the board with the entire team. It matches supply and demand like an economic system. Everybody participates, and you get smarter decisions when the dynamic is such. Prioritization. Prioritization has this funny attributes that if I ask a product owner at 9 o'clock, what does she want? She's going to tell me, oh, I want the A. If I come and see her the same day at 2 o'clock, she's going to say, oh, I want B now. Things change. Ideas are perishable, and we change our mind all the time. If you prioritize as a ritual and as an administrative ritual every week, without having capacity in the system to actually start something, well, you're doing speculative work. In Kanban, what we do is that when capacity comes by pulling work out of the system, we're asking the customer, what do you want? It doesn't come and it's no longer a prioritization effort. It's a selection effort. Of your backlog, what do you want? We have capacity for 2 tickets. What do you want now? It makes for a much more rational decision, and you're spending much less time planning and prioritizing. That means that you're actually spending more time working, which is nice. Backlog grooming is the same thing. It's good to analyze, to architect, to design. That's fine. But there are some activities like estimating that are again speculative work. Estimating is about trying to guess what's going to come up and how long it's going to take to do something. And when you commit yourself with a plan, with a date, there is what is called the anchoring effect. Your brain will not let go of this. You've basically committed yourself when you actually meant, I want to estimate only. So what did the Agile community did is that instead of going with absolute scales, they went with relative scales. Like a big t-shirt, a small t-shirt, a medium t-shirts, and they get together in a room and they, try to plan the next iteration or sprint in that fashion. Well, Kanban believes in taking a scientific approach and taking all the work that you've done, because you've got data, and leveraging it and saying, a change request for marketing takes on average 18 days or 3 days, 95% of the time. And when your client asks you, how long is it going to take for this change request in marketing to be done? Well, instead of saying 5 days, 4 days, and always missing the target, you tell them, based on our history with you, empirical evidence that we have with you, the client, well, we can do those in 5 days, 95% of the time. And that's all. You always give the same answers for those type of change requests. And you save a lot of time estimating for nothing. You have data, leverage it. people in the airline industry, the hotel industry, the fast food industry, all use these data that they have, that they experience for each flight, for each Burger King, and they can anticipate demand. They don't do any crystal ball gazing and meetings. They leverage their data, and so should you. Dependency management. Again, start a project and you forecast all of these dependencies ahead of time, and you realize that as time goes by, things change. That which you think was a small issue becomes bigger, and that which you think was a big issue becomes smaller. So all the time that you spend analyzing and forecasting and guessing about the dependencies that you have will surely prove to be totally fruitless when you're actually at that point. So Kanban has a system of reservation that is used to mitigate this. It's very long and complicated a bit to explain. But there is a video that was made by David Anderson maybe a month and a half ago, which is brilliant and which is really going to challenge the way that you think about managing dependencies. It's very brilliant work. No iteration. Well, again, why is it that everybody in the Agile community works with iterations? There is no mathematical foundation or scientific evidence that shows that it's the right thing to do. So what did the creator of Scrum and SAFe and all these Agile methodologies do? Is that they simply say that, you know, these big project, engineering project, and this project that lasts 3 years and that have 80,000 tasks, well, we're gonna scale them down and basically go for 4 weeks with 30 tasks. Well, the surprise is that on a project that takes 3 years with 80,000 tasks, the variance between the planned value and the actual value will tend to be 0 because of the sheer numbers of estimates and actual values. But mind you, we may have missed on all of the activities. But when you do the sum at the end of 3 years, the variance comes to 0. Now you translate that into a 4-week iteration. There's no way that the sum of your variances on 30 tasks is going to tend towards 0. It creates stress. It forces you to realize that you can't estimate, and we know that, and that you can't plan, and you know that. And it hurts. And what does Agile say when it hurts? Do more of it. Hey, we're going to go to a 3-week sprint. Well, guess what? You're not going to get any better, but you're going to do more planning, more estimating, and the variances between your planned values and your actual values, again, it's going to be bad. So it's hurting. Well, let's do more of it. How do we do more of it? Well, we go to a 2-week sprint, and it's not improving. And what happens at the end of the sprint? Variability sets in. And we take those numbers and we use them to plan the next sprint. It is toxic. That's what it is. It is toxic. Don't do that. It will drive you nuts. Return on investment. At some point, for higher management, the VPs, CIOs, and things like that, return on investment is a nice way to abstract the situation and the funding of where things go, and it makes perfect sense. When you're at the portfolio level or program level or project level, it will force you to analyze too much and to go into variances that don't need to be dwelt into. At the end of the day, when the product owner says, I want option B to be done, she's going to fix and fudge a return on investment numerator and says that this functionality is worth 300 million. I'm just kidding. But she will at the end decide, no matter what the denominator of effort is, she's going to decide what she wants, and she'll put the number that she needs to put to get things done. So basically, it all ends up with wasteful activities. Pivoting and the capability maturity model. This was a slide so that I can drink a bit of water. It was planned. Here's a slide by Management Tree by David Jürgen Appello. He does very good work. His integration work is fantastic. He owns the brand Management Tree. And he put this doll here with all the systems theory that exist. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them, but of interest for us now is chaos theory, which is right there where the heart is, and evolutionary theory, and disparative systems theory. Now, the point I want to make is not subtle at all, but I'll make it anyway. So you see where Scrum lies, it's theory of chaos, and you see where Kanban lies, it's evolutionary theory, and Kanban has a perfect mapping to CMMI. Basically, they're on top of the food chain. They're well thought out systems, and they work, and they're repeatable results and predictable results. When we look at CMMI, the maturity level of CMMI, we said that it goes from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And Kanban systems and Kanban metrics and Kanban tools allow you to climb that hierarchy in 6 months pretty easily. The recipe is brilliant to this regard. And David Anderson knows the CMMI model inside out, having worked for CMMI and having also designed the CMMI system at Microsoft. So he is an authority on this matter as well. So level 0 is luck. It's individual acts of heroism. It's ambivalent and chaotic. If your team is at level 0 and they were to play baseball, well, everybody will have a baseball. Level 1 is an emerging level. It's non-sustainable. It's the places, for example, where you have a PM cracking the whip all the time. In the long run, it will not do good. It will not be good for anyone. At level 2, we're starting to see progress. We're good enough to make a pizza with the right ingredient and the right recipe consistently. Level 3, where we're managed, well, we can actually, figuratively I'm speaking, of course, make a pizza and deliver it out to the customer. The consistency of outcome. And when you're quantitatively managed, well, you can make the pizza, deliver it hot to the customer, and actually make a profit. And since Kanban is based on evolution and adapting to your environment and being fit for purpose, you might realize one day that you're so good at distributing stuff in your city that will be more profitable for you to start a courier company in your city, delivering letters and packages and stuff like that. And you may mutate into a new kind of organization or whatever else, maybe inventing a new kind of pizza. So that wraps up my presentation by telling you that Kanban will teach you when is the right time to say no. Every day, you ask yourself, is this something that I shall do later? Is this something that I will never do? It's triage, basically, triage. Or is it something that I do now? If your organization and your boss and your CIO level or managerial level says, I want it all, I want it now, they are not managing risk. It will not happen. And this is the lesson that is one of the most important that you have to understand today. People who don't manage their risk want everything now, and they want it all. Think about that. Now, I will leave it to Lauren if there are any questions from the participants that they may wish to submit.
Yes, Daniel, we do have a couple of questions I will get to in just a second. Can you flip back to that slide for a minute with our information on it? Just want to let everyone know before we get to the questions that we are going to be having 2 Kanban classes held in our office coming up. Both back-to-back, September 18th and 19th and 20th and 21st. As you see on your screen there, for attending this webinar, we're offering additional savings. So if you take both classes, you get 30% off. So just use the code webinar30 when you're signing up. Or if you just need one of the classes, you can still get 25% off using the code webinar25. So just head to our website if that's what you're looking for. And I'm also going to include this information in a follow-up email that you'll get tomorrow. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be on there as well. So please reach out. Great. Okay, so Daniel, now we will head to the questions. We've got one.
Yes.
It says, can you please define Kanban? Is it a process, an approach, or a methodology?
Well, it's neither of all of those. Kanban is a method without a methodology. We give you tools, we give you knowledge, and you apply it as best you see fit. No framework, no methodology, no anything. It's Kanban is a double loop system, however, that will teach you how to learn. It's a double loop, management approach that will teach you how to learn. It's very powerful. But the simplest way to go around it is Kanban is a method without a methodology. That's how I would put it. It's knowledge, knowledge, knowledge.
Great.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, next question. What if development makes us realize that more analysis is required? If pull is left to right, do we push the ticket back?
The answer to that is have it your way. You can push it back, but then the level of stress will go down. What you should do, and what David Anderson basically recommends, is that you leave it there and it becomes a stressor. But it becomes a positive stressor. It will challenge the team to go and swarm on it and fix it. If you put it back, people might keep on working on stuff that carries that bug, and it will disseminate everywhere in the system. While if you put it there and you fix it there, people will stop working maybe upstream and propagate the bug, which is something that you don't want to do. But you can try it both ways. Both answers are good, but what David Anderson suggests is that you leave the ticket where it is.
Okay, cool. Next question. In the news, we often hear about long queue time at airport security. What lessons could Kanban give to airport managers or passengers?
Very good question. What you can do personally is to basically get yourself a pre-check status, a card, where the authorities will take your fingerprints, the picture of your retina, some blood maybe, and then you'll have an expedited class when you travel. You will not have to be stuck behind a lane. Now, the reason why the queues are so long, it's because they're not well managed. For example, the worst time comes when you have infrequent flyers. They fly once a year or once every 5 years for Thanksgiving or Christmas. They're not used to flying. So what's going to happen is that they're going to have a big bottle of Coke in their luggages, and the guy looking at the screen will say, hey, this is illegal. And it's a bottle of Coke. But he's making people waste their time for no reason. Visualization will help in this process, saying that physical pictures of bottles here are allowed, and these bottles are disallowed, and you have to get rid of them right now before going any further. That will help, because the guy or the lady that's working at the screen looking into your luggage is a scarce resource. She can't say, hey, your bottle is illegal. This is a crazy behavior. It's a bottleneck. Also, the next thing that happens is that the number of bins that can be on a rail before going to this person who looks at the screen, it may be like 4 or 5 bins. And when someone is slow, well, the person operating the screen may have 30, 50 seconds of slack. The answer is very simple. When there's a bottleneck in front of it, you put a buffer. So you should have a long rail where maybe 30 bins can be set up and prepared, so that that person over there screening your luggage is always busy. So that would be the first obvious things that I would suggest. And of course, when holiday season or peaks of traveling like Mother's Day or Thanksgiving, that people should be there to train everybody to make sure that those who are not frequent flyers can actually behave like frequent flyers. And it will smoothen the flow.
Okay. Great. I think that is all the questions that have been submitted.
Okay.
So we will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And Daniel, thank you for presenting.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Wonderful. As I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions or comments, or would like to sign up for one of our upcoming courses. Thanks so much.
Thank you.